Hi, and welcome to the Administrators Community Day 2, Building a System of Collaborating Partners. The mission of the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network, otherwise known as PATN, is to support the efforts and initiatives of the Bureau of Special Education and to build the capacity of local educational agencies to serve students who receive special education services. PDE's goal for each child is to ensure individualized education program teams begin with a general ed setting with the use of supplementary aids and services before considering a more restrictive environment. A focus of the P2G grant is to build systems changes that will last beyond the life of the grant. One good way to do this is to begin building a network of partners with whom you can work and collaborate that will help support and sustain this work well into the future. Today's objective is to increase knowledge around building and supporting a system of collaboration with teams, families, and community partners to implement sustained change. During the webinar today, we are going to view Drew Dudley's TED Talk about leadership called This is Day 1, A Practical Guide to Leadership. Then we will delve a little deeper into developing authentic collaboration with our P2G teams, our parents and families, and the community. And then we'll follow that up with next steps and your exit discussion questions that we will be referencing during the live meeting. You may recognize this book, This is Day 1, A Practical Guide to Leadership That Matters, as one of the resources that we are pulling into the P2G grant. Drew Dudley, its author, is the founder of Day 1 Leadership, where he works with individuals and organizations around the world to unlock their leadership potential. His TED Talk has been viewed close to 5 million times and been praised by everyone from Time, Business Insider, and Inc. magazine. Each school should have received a copy of his book, so if you haven't received it, please let one of your patent or TAC consultants know so we can get that to you. We are very excited to announce that he will be at the PDE conference hosting a special closed session for P2G administrators. Once that is available to register for, we will let you know. Due to copyright issues, we were unable to embed his video right into this presentation, so we provided you with a link. And if you would, for right now, pause this presentation and go to the link and watch his video on his TED Talk. It's about 6 minutes, and then when it's over, please join us again for the rest of the presentation. Thank you. Welcome back. So since our topic is collaboration, let's begin by defining it. Drew Dudley says that collaboration is a commitment to cooperating with others in the pursuit of goals. The IDEA Partnership Manual, which we'll talk about in more detail in a few minutes, defines it as engaging people in trying to do something of value and working together around the issue. When we think about collaborating to benefit the students, we think of 3 collaborating agents: the school team, in this case our P2G team, parents and families, and the community. Optimally, all 3 come together, bringing their varied perspectives, working with intention around common concerns in order to obtain the best student outcomes. Let's talk about these in a little bit more detail. As noted a moment ago, the school team we are referring to in the context of this presentation is your P2G team. However, this information is generalizable across any team that you're working with on any issue in your school. For this next section, we're going to be referring to the Leading by Convening Engagement Blueprint put out by the IDEA Partnership. Hopefully you've all received a copy of Leading by Convening. Again, if you haven't, please reach out to one of your consultants. In 1999, the U.S. Department of Education Office of Special Education Programs, or OSEP, recognized the need to bring general and special educators together with families, practitioners, administrators, and policymakers in order to build the relationships necessary to accomplish the landmark changes in 1997's IDEA amendments. The range of stakeholders was huge, and there was no guarantee that all of these people, each who brought different perspectives on the law, could successfully come together as allies. But they did, and in 2013, the lessons learned from this group about how to work together in order to achieve such a huge goal were then turned into this blueprint as best practice for stakeholder engagement. The quote displayed on this slide highlights the value this group places on relationships and is worth remembering in our roles as P2G leaders. In 2014, the National Center for Systemic Improvement, or NCSI, adopted this resource as its preferred and recommended approach to stakeholder engagement. This seemed like a natural resource to bring into our P2G work because so much of this project centers around collaboration, whether it's with the P2G LEA team, parents and families, or the community. In order to sustain this important work beyond the first few years of the grant, developing authentic relationships across stakeholders is going to be crucial. As they began this gigantic undertaking, the IDEA partnership began to see the need for a new type of leadership style, which was a hybrid of top-down and bottom-up leadership that's commonly seen in organizations. This new leadership style, which they termed leading by convening, recognizes the value of bringing together groups of people who have authority and groups of people who have influence to address a common need. These leaders work to translate and break down a complex issue or set of issues in such a way that all individuals are able to contribute. They set the conditions for people to come together through insight, networking, inspiration, and humility. The leading by convening framework includes what they call habits of interaction. These 3 habits are coalescing around issues, ensuring relevant participation, and doing the work together. When we engage in these habits routinely, leading by convening becomes a reality. So what do these habits look like? Coalescing around issues. That's when groups are pulled together around shared concerns. So in the context of the P2G grant, for example, we coalesce in our data team meetings to determine the best course of action for any student whose data indicates concern in those 3 markers: attendance, behavior, or grades. When we meet with community members and families for help with the action plan items for each student, we are coalescing around those issues. Although representing different roles, all members share the concern, the need, and the action. And the fact that everyone brings a different perspective due to varied backgrounds or experiences and expertise means that solutions that we would not have maybe thought of ourselves can be considered. Ensuring relevant participation is when participants demonstrate the willingness to take action steps to move the work forward. They're not just sitting and listening, walking into a meeting, sitting down, listening to what others have to say. They come in with the expectation that they are going to be taking action to help solve this problem. Doing the work together, that's practicing shared decision-making, planning, and taking action. So when these groups are pulled together, the leadership, the school leadership, is comfortable and willing and able to share the decision-making with the stakeholders. And that way everyone takes ownership of it and feels valued and heard. In addition to practicing these 3 habits of interaction regularly, we should also consider how deeply we're engaging these interactions. There are 4 levels to interactions, and these are informing, networking, collaborating, and transforming. Informing is the initial stage of interaction where we are simply sharing information with others who share a common interest in the issue. When we move a little deeper into the networking level, we're beginning to engage others by really listening to their thoughts and ideas around the issue. Moving into collaboration means that we've begun to engage people in taking action steps. And by the time we reach the transforming level, it means that we're sharing leadership and decision-making with stakeholders and giving them a deep sense of ownership of the work. We can use these levels of engagement to reflect on our P2G work. When we first begin working together, we may be at the informing level of engagement. But once groups are able to see their own interest reflected back at them, that engagement deepens. Ideally, as we begin to stretch individually and organizationally, we can move into the transforming depths of interaction, which is where we should be to sustain the goals of the grant in the long term. The Leading by Convening blueprint provides us with rubrics for each habit. And this is an example of the rubric for the first habit, coalescing around issues. Each rubric is set up in the same format. Across the top are the depth levels of interaction, and under that are descriptions of the observable behaviors that collaborators would be engaged in. As you move down the first column, you'll see 4 big ideas which characterize the elements of the particular habit that rubric is for. These rubrics are great tools to use in individual or group reflection sessions, just informally as pre-post assessment perhaps, at the beginning or end of year, every 6 months, or from year to year. There are, like I said, 3 rubrics for each habit, and if you are interested in delving into that a little deeper, I encourage you to look in your Leading by Convening manual and kind of just take a look and think about where you are as a team and where you would like to go and how you can possibly get there. We've just discussed deepening your interactions with your school P2G team, but deepening our interactions with our parents and families is critical as well. Families have always been powerful change agents, as I'm sure you know, and engaging them in meaningful and intentional ways is going to be critical to sustain change. Now we're going to watch a presentation on encouraging partnerships with families that was developed by Jackie DiDomenico, a parent consultant at Patton East.
Welcome to Encouraging Partnerships with Families, What Leaders Need to Know. I hope you find the following presentation encouraging and enlightening. The presentation is intended to inform leaders in the field of education or special education what they need to know to encourage parents or families to partner with their school, their child's teachers, and the education team supporting their child. Parent engagement, also known as parent involvement or family community partnerships, has a great deal of data supporting the positive outcomes for both students and schools. As the research shows, some of the benefits of family engagement are improved test scores, increased school attendance, and improved teacher morale. An NEA policy brief states when schools, families, parents, and communities work together to support learning, students tend to have higher grades, attend school more regularly, stay in school longer, and enroll in higher level programs. Bringing parents into schools also improves overall school outcomes. Schools can call on more resources and support. When parents are more involved in the school, teachers learn more about the cultural and ethnic communities served by the school. Whether you call it involvement, engagement, or partnership, making a connection between school and home is an important and impactful activity. The evidence is consistent, positive, and convincing. Many forms of family and community involvement influence student achievement at all ages. All families can contribute to their children's success. For involvement to happen, however, principals, teachers, and parents themselves must believe that all parents can contribute to their children's success in school. Parents can promote their children's academic success by teaching their children the importance of education, finding out what their children are expected to know and to be able to do, and reinforcing lessons at home. Sending their children to school ready to learn every day. Principals and teachers must support parent involvement by making parent involvement a priority, recognizing and removing barriers to parent involvement, sharing decision-making power with parents and community members, working to understand class and cultural differences. When programs and initiatives focus on building respectful, trusting relationships among school staff, families, and community members, they are more effective in creating and sustaining connections that support student achievement. Speaking up for children protects and promotes their success. Children whose parents are advocates for them at school are more confident at school and take on and achieve more. The more families advocate for their children and support their children's progress, the longer their children stay in school and the better their children do. Families should become knowledgeable about the operations of school and the laws that govern these operations. Engaging community members, businesses, and organizations as partners in children's education can improve their learning community in many ways. For example, Community partners may be able to provide expanded learning opportunities, build broad-based support for increased school funding, and provide quality after-school programs. As participants in Path to Graduation, P2G, you have access to a wonderful parent resource. Families to the Max is the statewide Pennsylvania Family Network. The network history and growth are a good example of collaboration between families, communities, and education organizations. The statewide parent network began as a collaboration between 3 separate agencies, coming together under one common goal. PATTN, the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network, along with HUNE, a Community Parent Resource Center, and PEAL, the Parent Training and Information Center serving Pennsylvania, joined forces to develop a plan, recognizing 3 important areas of focus. We needed to build awareness, empower parents, and lead to change. This collaboration took dedicated effort. The lessons learned and resources developed can benefit you as leaders as you strive to engage parents. One of the outcomes developed is the listed partnership norms. If you maintain focus on a shared goal, respect the knowledge and skills that all stakeholders bring to the shared work, have effective and compassionate communication, and work with clarity and transparency, it will help you move your parent engagement efforts forward. In addition to the partnership norms, I wanted to share with you the network design parameters. As you read through this slide, please imagine using the words in the left column to draft your own parameters, allowing collaborative interactions among school team members, school staff, and parents and community members, aligning with your team's vision, communicating, and ensuring positive outcomes as you develop a balanced plan designed to ensure student success. As the partnership developed a cohesive group, an important outcome of our building awareness phase was developed. That development was 5 training courses. These courses were designed with parents in mind, but can be used with staff and/or community members. They are based on the tenets of maximizing access, education, and learning. The intent is to provide training that is appropriate for your audience at that time. The courses are designed to be presented in any order and customized for better understanding. They cover presuming competence, access to the general education curriculum, maximizing communication, collaboration, and leading change. Additionally, it is always wise to tie the presentation topic to current situations that your team is managing. As the network has grown and we have involved parents, we have partnered and have presented at the Pennsylvania Department of Ed Conference, the Transition Conference, the Low Incidence Helix Conference, as well as trainings across the Commonwealth. A noteworthy training was in Lancaster for over 100 paraprofessionals, a seminar at the Institute of Higher Ed, and presentations where parents were in attendance, participated, or shared their stories virtually. With growth, the network has emphasized how storytelling, sharing, and listening has had the most beneficial outcomes. We have seen that when parents hear other parents, professionals hear parents, or parents hear professionals, concepts move forward, barriers are seen as challenges to overcome, and students reap the rewards. I wanted to share with you, as administrators, a sample of storytelling and the impact it has. I have stories from 2 parents. Each shares the parent's firsthand perspective on how one individual can change a student's educational journey. Please take time as you listen to jot down any aha thoughts you have. You may also have questions regarding the stories shared here. Please bring them to our virtual conversation. In Kim's words, our son John, who has Down syndrome, is currently in 9th grade at Perkiomen Valley High School. When he started in the elementary school, we requested that John have a fully inclusive educational experience at his home school. John was the first student with Down syndrome fully included. Unfortunately, because the administration in the district at the time did not support inclusive practices, John went back and forth between a learning support class and another district school at his home school. However, despite the lack of support from the school district, I kept reading the research and educating myself. I continued to advocate for John that he be put back in the least restrictive environment in his home school, with limited success. John attended our home district middle school. Our experience was better, though still difficult. The newly hired special education director was supportive of inclusion. The principal at the middle school was excellent and very interested in how to help John have a more inclusive experience. But many obstacles remained. In particular, we struggle with the lack of inclusive practices by some of the special education teachers at John's middle school, and an overall lack of commitment to best practices for including students with significant needs. Because I had experienced 8 years of feeling like I was fighting the system, I began working with a local private school where my other children had attended. After a year and a half, it became clear that the private school was not going to be able to support John well in the time frame that we needed. Out of desperation, I emailed the superintendent of Perkiomen Valley requesting a meeting. To my surprise, I received an email reply from Dr. Barbara Russell agreeing to meet with me. We met for what I thought would be a 20-minute perfunctory appeasement meeting. However, the meeting lasted 2 hours. Dr. Russell was concerned, sympathetic, surprised, and sometimes extremely troubled at what I shared concerning John's educational experience. At the conclusion of the meeting, she asked that I participate in a parent advisory board she was starting for the purpose of finding solutions to challenge of full inclusion. I walked out of the meeting feeling hopeful but extremely wary that the district would actually embrace inclusion and start to do the work necessary to make an equitable education available to all students. Thankfully, I was wrong. Since that meeting 7 months ago, Dr. Russell has brought an inclusion specialist to speak at a district-wide teacher in-service training. She modeled for other supervisors and administrators how to be approachable, listen to the concerns, and take action to address parental concerns. She started an equity inclusion advisory group that meets bi-monthly. She started a general parent advisory group that meets bi-monthly. She also implemented a comprehensive plan to move the district towards stronger, inclusive, and equity practices. The value of having a superintendent or some other high-ranking administrator embrace, understand, and educate others on inclusive practices is immense. Dr. Russell has begun to create systemic change that will benefit students for years to come. Thinking of Kim's story, consider the outcomes. Was Kim heard? Did she feel validated? What might we want to know? Let's think of the benefits to the family and the benefits to the child. Kim now has a solid, positive relationship with her school team. John is in an environment that supports his academic and social needs. The second story that I'd like to share is one that Katie has shared as a network member. She chose this one because knowing this was a presentation to administrators, she wanted to acknowledge how we often dismiss non-academic environments. However, this educator's efforts had an impact that certainly went beyond the gymnasium. When my son Andrew was in 4th grade, he had difficulty walking long distances and with stamina. This interfered with his participation in gym class. However, he loved watching his peers in gym. The physical education teacher contacted me and asked, "Is there anything Andrew enjoys that could be incorporated into gym class so he can participate more?" I shared that my son loves both scooters and riding a bike. The following week, there was a bike for Andrew to ride around while the other students ran. The physical education teacher also added scooters to the gym curriculum, furthering Andrew's inclusion. Additionally, students began to offer activity suggestions they believed Andrew would like and could do. Finally, at the conclusion of the year, the physical education teacher compiled a list of all this information and shared it with the middle school where Andrew would be starting in the fall. Consider the outcomes in this situation. Katie's input was sought after and valued. How often do teachers forget to ask for parents' perspective in situations such as these? Andrew felt included and valued as a member of his class. His peers were actively supporting a fellow student and made suggestions for additional involvement. Future teachers were shared valuable information, which was beneficial when Andrew's classes moved from one building to the next. One of the latest ideas coming through the parent engagement movement is from Look, Listen, and Learn, Parent Narratives and Grounded Theory Models of Parent Voice, Presence, and Engagement. Parent voice is the right and opportunity for parents and caregivers to express their thinking and understanding about their children's and families' everyday lives and education experience in and out of school. Parent present refers to the parent caregiver's actions and involvement in their children's education, whether through formal school spaces and traditional activities or in more personal, informal spaces, including spaces created by parents themselves. The past two stories I shared with you about Kim and Katie's experiences are an example of parent voice. These lead to parent engagement. Parent input and perspective can benefit teachers, schools, and the student's plan. In addition to the parent network, there are a number of other resources to encourage parent engagement. From publications to Indicator 8 modules, these resources can be shared as professional development or with parents to promote and invite involvement. Patent offers several parent-friendly publications, a teacher's desk reference series, and online modules and recorded presentations are available. This slide is to give you an example of what types of publications we have at the Patent website. The publications in the green and blue font are parent-friendly publications. They're written with parents in mind and address issues parents typically have in navigating special education. The ESY publication is a sample of the Teacher's Desk Reference series. There are a number of publications here that are educational based, but can be used in parent engagement and parent involvement. The timeline document is designed to have one side represent a parent-initiated process and the other side an LEA-initiated process. Therefore, can be used for both parents and educators alike. On the patent website, www.pattan.net, you have access to our 6 parent engagement modules as part of our work supporting Indicator 8. These modules are based on the 6 PTA standards: welcoming all families, communicating effectively, supporting student success, speaking up for every child, shared decision making, and collaborating with the community. The modules come with an assessment tool, a presenter's guide, and an overview document, allowing for customizing any professional development. 2 additional resources are the National Network of Partnership Schools Family Engagement and the Indicator 8 Survey. Family engagement connected to the National Network of Partnership Schools connects school teams that are working on family involvement, community and family outreach, and parent engagement. The Indicator 8 survey is distributed to school cohorts on a 6-year cycle to gain parent input from parents of students receiving special ed services. They may receive the survey from an independent organization. We encourage schools to notify families when they are within their cycle year, emphasizing the input they provide is anonymous and voluntary. The following 4 slides are recommendations from Karen Mapp and Ann Henderson based on the research they did in A New Wave of Evidence. Recommendation 1. Every study in this review that compared levels of parent involvement found that families of all backgrounds are equally involved at home, although the forms of involvement varied somewhat by the culture and ethnicity. Every study that assessed programs to engage low-income families found that almost all were willing and able, with training, to implement practices linked to improved achievement. Parents were highly engaged. Furthermore, studies showed that children's gains were directly related to how much their families were involved. Always proceed with this assumption. All families can help improve their child's performance. Recommendation 2. Most programs that engage families in supporting children's learning are aimed at families with young children. Programs are needed at the elementary level and especially in the middle and high school level. Recommendation number 3. The lack of social and political capital can seriously restrict families' capacity to support their children's learning and make sure they get high-quality education. When parents feel they have the power to change and control their circumstances, children tend to do better in school. Their parents are also better equipped to help them. When schools work with families to develop their connections, families become powerful allies of the schools and advocates for public education. Recommendation number 4. Increase opportunities for professional development on how to connect with families and community members. Several studies highlighted the importance of the relationship between school staff and families, and school staff and community members as key to developing effective connections. Recommendation 5. To be effective, programs and practices that engage families should be focused in some way on improving achievement. This does not mean that the school should abandon engaging families in school improvement committees or stop holding open houses or family nights. Nor does it mean the family activities should be test preparation drills aimed for balance. Some activities should be designed especially to assist students to develop their knowledge and skills. Other activities can have different goals, such as building working relationships between families and teachers or connecting families to community programs. Recommendation 6. A theme repeated again and again in the studies is that relationships are key. Any attempt to form genuine collaboration among school staff, parents, and community members must start with building relationships of respect. The building of relationships must be intentional and consistent. When outreach efforts reflect a sincere desire to engage parents and community members as partners in children's education, the studies show that they respond positively. Recommendation 7. Adopt a philosophy that family and community engagement is a key component for your whole school reform plan. Several studies found that when school, family, and community connection initiatives were part of a comprehensive plan to improve student achievement, the programs engaged and sustained the involvement of family and community members and organizations. Some of the studies found a relationship between these more comprehensive approaches and better outcomes for students. Recommendation 8. Connections to community groups can expand the resources available to schools for both staff and families. The community organizing studies are full examples of collaboration between school leaders and community groups that have contributed to improved facilities, more funding resources, higher quality academic programs, improved social and health services, and new after-school programs. To tie all this information together, know the listed requirements on this slide are a good guide to actively engage parents, promote positive two-way communication. Be sure you are clear about where the parent is with their understandings. Ask clarifying questions. Be sure that your communication is received correctly and that the parent's understanding is what needs to be done and how they can assist in doing it. Listens to parents' answers when asked what they need to know. Ask for their stories. Ask for their child's story. Build a collaborative relationship that strengthens the school, home, and community connection. If you begin with the belief that all parents want their child to be successful in school and reach their potential, it is wise to be creative in your partnering approach. Asking parents to support a school activity, training, or program requires them to know what will be beneficial not just to their child, but to other children and the staff alike. This statement captures the goal of parent partnership. Ultimately, working together, parents and professionals will positively influence opportunities, experiences, and outcomes, and envision a future where all students are prepared for meaningful post-school success. As an administrator, you set the tone. Leading by example, you welcome parents, emphasize their importance, and convey how they can impact the success of a team effort. As a resource, the Partners and Families to the Max network team members are available to meet, discuss, share, and support the efforts that you are pursuing around parent engagement. Thank you for listening to this presentation on encouraging partnerships with families, what leaders need to know. My name is Jackie T. Domenico. I'm a parent consultant at the Patton Malvern office. You can reach me at jddomenico@patton.net or 1-800-441-3215. My extension is 7222. If you have any questions regarding this presentation or cannot attend the virtual question and answer session on January 24th, 2019, please reach out to me via my email or phone number.
Hi again, welcome back. Thank you for watching Jackie's presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sure it was very informative. So we've heard about the benefits, and Jackie just shared some real life stories. But sometimes, and we've heard this from districts across the state, it can be pretty challenging to think of new ways to engage our families. To introduce you to some interesting things going on in the country, we want to introduce you to a publication called Promising Partnership Practices. This is a publication created by Dr. Joyce Epstein from Johns Hopkins University. Her name might sound familiar to you. She is one of the biggest names in family engagement research. And she developed a framework that you may be familiar with on the 6 different types of engagement. As part of her work, she and her organization, called the National Network of Partnership Schools, pulled together ideas of successful and unique engagement activities from all over and published them yearly in the Promising Partnership Practices booklet. You can get some of these online, some of these publications. Not all years might be available for free, but there are a couple fairly recent copies that you can pull up when you Google this, or if you search the www.fmucenterofexcellence.org. So the example of a parent-family collaboration event that you see on this slide is a middle school event that was held by a district in Washington. They invited community members to present informative sessions on the many challenges that middle schoolers may face so that parents could know where to turn and what to do and what resources are out there. And they also provided dinner, which enabled families to network with other families. It enabled them to talk to the school staff, and it enabled them to talk to the community members who can offer valuable assistance and information. So it ended up being a very successful event, and this is just one example of so many that's in this publication. So again, if you're looking for good ideas, unique ideas, other ways maybe that you haven't tried to hopefully get more parents engaged, this booklet will probably give you lots of great ideas. To wrap up the parent-family collaboration section of this webinar, we just listed some resources and articles that you might find helpful in moving forward. And that then takes us to our final group of stakeholders, the community members. Now let's think about how we can authentically engage our community. Dr. Epstein, who we talked about a few minutes ago, defines community as all who are interested in and affected by the quality of education, not just those with children in schools. And she further notes that community may include immediate neighborhoods as well as any neighborhood that influences student learning and development. It's important to recognize that when responsibility for student learning is shared by the school, home, and community, students have more opportunities for meaningful, engaged learning. Students are able to see the connection between the curriculum in the school and the skills that are required in the real world. Not only do the collaborations yield improved results in student learning, but the collaborations also serve to strengthen the schools, families, and very communities themselves. Community engagement is a process by which organizations and individuals build ongoing, permanent relationships to benefit the community. The benefits include improved student learning, stronger families, and healthier communities. Community engagement means harnessing the assets throughout the communities to benefit the students and schools. Dr. Boyd Rossing of the University of Wisconsin notes this about assets. Assets, often of untold value, lie within the citizens of our communities, within the groups we form, within our larger organizations, within our land and other physical resources, within our local economy, and within organizations and projects that connect us. So who or what could be considered a community asset? It could be a person. Residents can be empowered to realize and use their abilities to build and transform the community. So the dad who organizes a play group, or the informal neighborhood leader, the firefighter who risks his life to keep the community safe. These are all community assets. It could be a physical structure or a place like a school, a hospital, a church, a library, the recreation center, the social club. It could be a town landmark or a symbol. It might be something like an unused building that could house a community hospice or a second floor room for community meetings. Or it could be a public place that already belongs to the community, like a park, a wetland, or other open space. It can be a community service that makes life better for everybody in the community, such as public transportation, early childhood education centers, recycling facilities, cultural organizations, or it could be a business that provides jobs and supports the local economy. Everyone in the neighborhood is a potential community asset. Everyone has some skill or talent, something that they can share with the community. And most people have connections to the people they know and the people within the community, and would be happy to provide the kind of support that everyone needs. If that's making phone calls or stuffing envelopes or giving information or moving equipment or supplies, whatever needs doing. So what this viewpoint or perspective suggests is that everyone in the community can be a force for community improvement if only we knew what their assets were and if we could put them to use. So why should you identify community assets? The Center for Community Health and Development at the University of Kansas lists several good reasons for working to identify community assets, and some of these are that community assets can be used as a foundation for community improvement, which benefits everyone, including our schools and students. They can provide us with resources that we might otherwise not be able to obtain ourselves due to federal and state monies maybe not being available to us. And then identifying community assets really helps us to understand our community. And unless we understand our community and know everything that's out there, we aren't really as efficient in tapping into the community and engaging with them as we could be. So a way to identify these community assets is by a process called community resource mapping. This might sound familiar to you. It's a process to identify the places, institutions, programs, and people that contribute to making our communities great places to live and learn. And it's a way to learn about the resources available to school community to enrich student learning and support students and families. The community or asset mapping process is made up of 3 primary steps. The first step is the pre-mapping phase, and in this phase you're really identifying your vision and your goals, and you're planning the process for completing the map. In step 2, the mapping phase, you're identifying the actual resources and actually doing the mapping of those resources. Along with that comes deciding on which format you're going to use. And then the final step is maintaining, sustaining, and evaluation. So resource mapping is not a once and done type of task because communities are so often changing in terms of resources coming in and out. So it's not a one and done thing. So you'll want to, after you've mapped, you'll want to kind of look at it, maintain the map, add new resources as they come up, and evaluate how effective your map is. Do you need more maps? Are there gaps in services that you don't have addressed on your map? Do you need to seek out whether those resources are in the community? So you're kind of constantly maintaining, sustaining, and evaluating the process. One good tool you can use to help you with the mapping process is just Google. So if you go to Google Maps and type in search maps and then search nearby and then enter words related to your resource, you can see on the screen here on the slide all the different resources in that community. Some are a little further out, maybe those wouldn't be ones you tapped into, but you can see the cluster of community centers, for example, and then you can determine if that's one you would want to seek out. Another useful tool that you can use for your mapping process is the 211 United Way database. It's a comprehensive database of over 4,600 federal, state, and local services. So you can browse by category and keywords or organizational names, and when they come up, you can just add that to your map. This is an example of a community map that a school in Harrisburg City School District completed, and on the left you'll see they have the list of community organizations and agencies, and they listed Boys and Girls Club of Harrisburg, Central PA Rotary Clubs, all the names of the organizations, agencies, community businesses on the left, and then in the other column, in the second column, they listed benefits that they could gain through a partnership with these community organizations. So for example, Boys and Girls Club of Harrisburg, a benefit that they could gain from that partnership would be recreational. The kids could use the recreational areas, and they could partner as PBIS reinforcement, for example. Going to the Boys and Girls Club could be something that the kids earned if they got a certain number of tickets through PBIS. So that is one way that this school thought of using the Boys and Girls Club of Harrisburg. They recognized that the Central PA Rotary Club could provide them with dictionaries and glasses, and that the Capital Literacy Council could provide books to the building, and the Big Brother, Big Sister program is a mentoring program. So they listed any benefits that they could possibly think of that could be gained from a partnership with these organizations. So that's the first page, and I'll scroll to the next slide so you can see the rest of the document. So here they just continue on. They listed some that you might not even think of as a potential partner, such as the news station. They considered that perhaps the news station could participate in the Adopt a Class program, and the newscasters could come in to read to students. Then they listed community educational institutions and how that would benefit through donated books and high school student volunteers, grant opportunities. And then they have a column for, or the categories other. So anything that didn't fit into those other categories, but would still prove to be a really beneficial partner, that was also listed. So they didn't just stop at the main ones. They went through and really thought about their community and what services and foundations and groups were out there and how could they possibly benefit the school and families and students. This is an example of a very effective community collaboration effort between a community organization and a school district. The Boys and Girls Club of Harrisburg, which you'll remember was listed as an agency on the community mapping document that we just discussed, they partnered with the school district of Harrisburg to provide access to the students, the recreation areas, the activity centers, as part of their PBIS program. So I think you'll enjoy this video. If you pause this presentation, click on the link to the video, and then consider, while you're watching this, reflect a little bit about what the characteristics are of the Boys and Girls Club of Harrisburg that enabled such effective collaboration between them and the Harrisburg School District. Then when you're finished with the video, if you would just return to the original presentation, and we will talk about some community collaboration resources. This is a listing of some important and informative community engagement resources that we will not go into today for today's presentation, but they really are worth a deeper look and can support you as you begin to reach out or continue to reach out to your communities. This is a listing of community mapping resources. So these resources can help support you as you work through the community mapping or asset mapping process, and can really provide you with some good tools for doing that. And that wraps up our session on stakeholder engagement. Next steps include the live Zoom meeting held on January 24th from 9:30 to 11, where we will be discussing the following questions. These are the questions we would like you to reflect on between now and January 24th, and be ready to share out your experiences and your thoughts and your ideas around these questions. Which stakeholders have been the easiest for you to engage? Which have been the most challenging? Why? If you can put this in the context of the P2G, that would be great. And if not, because you're not that deep into the work yet, that's fine. How are you engaging your parents? As we know, that's a big part of the P2G grant. So how are you engaging them, and what barriers might engaging the families of the students involved in this grant present? Who are your community partners? How did you find and how do you engage them? How do you connect them to the students and parents who need them? Evaluate your current P2G LEA team collaboration. What's going well? What might need more work? And are you able to pull in all the staff and faculty that you need to, or that need to be aware of the strategies and interventions for the students that you have targeted? In other words, they might not be on the team, but how are you getting these strategies out to all the teachers who surround the student? And then which level of interaction do you see yourself engaging at when you reflect on your current practices, be that with the P2G LEA team, or the parents and families, or the community members? And how could you deepen those interactions? In order to receive the Act 48 credit for this presentation, you'll need to email the code to Annette Bauerlein at abauerlein@patenkop.net. And the code is P2G AC2. Again, that's P2G AC2. Thank you so much for joining us for this presentation, and we are looking forward to talking to you on January 24th.